Hello, this is Baron from Ragic speaking. We're going to start in around 3 minutes, so we'll wait for a few other people to join in. I do have a few questions emailed to me, and I will start with those. For those who haven't been in this webinar yet before, this webinar is all about your questions. So we're going to take questions through the chat box through the live chat. If you can't see the live chat box, you should scroll down a little bit and you should see it. In this webinar, we usually answer user questions, and I will try to build prototypes as we go, or show you how to solve problems or questions about searching. And I do have a few emailed in to me beforehand, so I will start with those, and then we'll try to answer user questions that come in the same time. All right. We're going to begin in a couple minutes. And as I said before, you can just write your questions anytime. That's fine. I'll get to them as we go. So I do have a list of questions in my hand over here. The first one is about searching for empty data. So this is what I just came up with last week, I think, during our webinar, or and maybe a test that I was doing. But in this account, I hope you can see clearly. I know my resolution is a little large. Let me just enlarge this a little bit. Okay, so to search for empty records, you can do this from either the field headers over here or through the left sidebar search tool. So I'm going to do it both ways so that you can see. So you can see that I already have empty records on these two, and I only have like 3 records, so it's pretty apparent. But if you have like thousands of records and you're looking for something, then this is going to be really handy. So once you click on the arrow next to the field header, make no mistake, the arrow is on the right side, whether your field header is centered or on the left or on the right. The arrow is always on the right side of the field header, so this arrow is for the address. And if I click the arrow, I can see the options filter by text and sorting to sort my listing page, as well as total and summary. We'll get to that. So if I filter by text and not type anything in here, I click exact match, I can go submit, and then it will search for empty records. So the same thing you can do from the left sidebar search. If I clear this filter and do it again through here and not type anything underneath address, and if I click exact match and search, it will show me the empty addresses. So similarly, you can do this for phone as well. If you wanted to search for fields that have, let's just make a value in here. If I wanted to search for fields, records that have both an empty address and a phone that is empty, then I would do it from the left sidebar search tool, because you can search for multiple fields on the left sidebar. The easiest way is this. So you can see it only gives me 1 record. Alright, let's clear this, and if you have any questions about that empty field search, just let me know. And one thing that isn't asked over here, but it goes really parallel to this is, well, how do I search for records that actually have a value? So to do that, you can go to the filter by text option again through the field header and type in a regular expression. So for the people who aren't familiar with regular expressions, they're a type of notation that computers use, and if you're not familiar with them, you can always look them up. Again, they're called regular expressions, and we have a few examples on regular expression search on our user guide, but the one to use for not empty fields is regex, and two dots, a period, and a plus, and it will show me the fields that have a value in, the records that have a value in that field. All right. So that comes in really handy when you have a lot of records, but you know that a select few are full for that value and you're looking for them. Then that's the way to go. Alright, so if you have any questions about this further or about searching, just write it down on the live chat over there and we'll get to them. Alright, the next question is, let me have a look. The approval process. So this is asked a lot, but I don't think I can effectively demonstrate the whole process on here because I'm the only user in this account, but I'll show you every step and how they look like. So let's say that we had an approval process for contracts, okay? Because that is usually plausible. So let me just go into one of these and assign me as the owner of the contract. We don't have any accounts in this. Alright, so, oops. Let me just create a new account then. Okay. So, alright, for the people uninitiated, our approval process is when you want to submit a document and would like to have it approved by a manager in your company. This is the easiest way to go within Ragic without back and forth emails and actual signing and documents like that. Usually it's set up in front by the system administrator because they can access the design mode and the backend of your database. So if you're a regular user, you might not see the screen at all. I just clicked the change design button over there and it went to the design mode of my form for the contract. So the approval process is set up either through here when I want to configure approval. The form tools also has a menu over here to configure approvals, and that will open this one over here. So on the bottom right corner, you'll see a check mark, and if you hover on it, it will let you configure approval flow. And I'm clicking on this. So the way to add an approval step is, if you want several steps, you can add more, but usually one is what people do. So the title can be manager or, in our case it's contract, so it might be one of our company lawyers, so I can write lawyer under here. So this can be anything you want. And the name over here shows me the user groups in Ragic and also the users. So I'm the only user right now, so it only shows me, but there might be different users as well. So I know what question is coming up about this. Can external users be added to the approval step? Yes, they can be, but they won't be able to start an approval process on their own. Okay, so this is set up once. So usually if I wanted to, for example, select someone for accounting, like anyone that is in the accounting group will be able to approve when I start the approvals process, okay? So let's say I have a few lawyers in my accounting group and I'm just going to add lawyer. You can also select certain users to do the approval if they're the only one who can. You can allow the user to reject the approval, and you can also lock the record when approval starts. This is recommended because you don't want to have people edit the record while there is an approval process going on. Once it's approved or rejected, that lock will be removed so that people can edit the record. Okay, and the strict identity verification, I never used this, but this I think is for the US laws, so just look it up and see if you want to set that up or not. And you can add a few other people. So we got this feedback this week about the approval steps being, for example, if I had two approval steps, first the lawyer needs to approve, and then the next step would be me approving the record, and then it would be approved. The problem with this is it's not simultaneous, so I have to wait for the lawyer to approve before I do, so that so it's kind of like step by step. This works for a lot of people, but bear in mind that if you want like a few people approving this at once, then you probably want to do something else, not the approval over here. Okay, so I only have one step and I'm gonna save this. Don't forget to save your approval. Once you save your record, it's gonna be saved over here. So once you save that approval step and you are done with creating your entry, you can start putting the entire record into your approval by clicking on the icon over here. So the checkbox is the approval. Keith is asking, can we make the allow to reject approval box checked by default? No, but that is set up in the design mode for our system administrators. So I don't think you're going to set this up a lot of times. It's just once you set it up in the design, people should be able to create their own. So I just noticed that I'm the only user, so nobody's in the accounting group, but let me just set it up so that I'm the approver. So okay. And Keith, to go back to your question, our decision is not to make that a default option because people might get confused, and the most used version of this approval flow is without the rejection. They just kind of keep working on the record until it's right. Okay, so when I start the approval process, it's going to be locked for all of other users, so nobody can edit these. So you can see that they turned gray. And this will make Ragic email and also notify the user who is supposed to approve that record. Now, I can't really see this because I'm the only user. So what it looks like is I'll open the user guide and we have some images over there. Sorry, I meant to open that in the news tab. So in the approval flow, so once I start an approval for all the steps, it's gonna show me pending approval. So that doesn't show up because I'm the only user, so it looks a bit weird. But it's gonna show all the approval steps and if it's pending or not, like this. So this doesn't say approval anymore. It's the checkbox over here. So make sure keep in mind that it doesn't really look entirely the same. Let's see. This is the configuration. All right. So once the approval is started, it should be pending. This is a little bit weird. We should have more steps over here. Oh, well, no wonder this is asked because our documentation is incomplete. Well, I'll tell you what it does show up like on the user end. I think we have it on the home page, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So once the user who's requested to approve that record logs in and looks at that one record, they will see this approve button under approval. And once they click it, it will show up like this, approved. So if you set the allow to reject approval, there is an approve or reject button, and they can either approve or reject. And then once they reject it, the approval, well, the record will be unlocked again, and the person who created it must edit the record to their liking, and then perhaps start another approval process. Okay. Yeah, I will have a look at that document because that's incomplete. But and the person who started the approval can also cancel approval if they notice that something is wrong and they need to fix something. Right. So if you have an approval process on here, you'll see that you have an extra thing over here underneath views on the left sidebar search tool. So this shows like the approval status. You can actually search for records according to their approval status over here. And you should be able to add a field that shows the approval process as well. Let's see. Right, so the default values don't really show me that, but there should be a way to add a new field that has that value in some way. I'll look that up and get back to you about it. So if you have any questions about the approval, I know it's a little bit confusing because you don't really actually see the approve or reject process, but basically once all the approval steps are done, then the record is unlocked, and then it will show if this record was approved or not. Okay? Alright, so our next question is about let's see. Is about changing the way information, and this is a little bit advanced, so I apologize for newer users. If you have other questions, just write it in the live chat box. This is going to be a little bit more advanced. So Alex is asking if there is any way to change the way information and entry forms, tables, and subtables look like based on the content of the cells. So what we call this is relational formatting, I guess. And he's saying, for example, if a field is equal to X, make the background red, the fonts white and bold. If it's equal to Y, make the background normal and the font blue. So we kind of have a few workarounds for this. We are actually working on adding conditional formatting options for changing how the record's values look like. But currently, there are a few workarounds you can use instead of like having it automatically change the formatting of a field value. So let me show you what I mean by, I guess we can create a new project kind of thing, or I can modify this one. Yeah, okay. So this one has a status field saying open or completed. I'll just add a few more options to that. Open, completed, and or maybe started. No, actually, completed in pending or closed. So I want completed to show up as green, pending yellow, and closed red. And I do have a whole what do you call them? Whole guide about the thing I'm going to do right now. So I'll open that up as well and send the link, hopefully. Okay, so this is a status indicator. Oh, sorry. I'm actually supposed to copy that over from here. Just 1 second. Okay, I'll just copy paste the link so that you can actually refer to this while I'm talking. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I want to add a traffic light kind of graphic that looks like this. So these three bowls that have different colors can be on the activity sheet, and when I change the status, it will show me that it makes it easier for me to see if this is complete or changed. So status visual, okay, and I think this is going to be a free text field. Alright, so as I say in the documentation that I created over here, I just created 3 images. It doesn't really matter where you are hosting these. In fact, in my example, I hosted it on an image hosting site called ImageUR. In a way, it doesn't really matter where you're hosting it. So you can also add the images, upload them to a comment on Ragic. That also works fine. When you have this as an attachment, you can actually reference to it through the link address. So it doesn't really matter, but it needs to be on the internet. Okay? Because I'm going to display this with a URL. Okay, so I want the status to show me a different colored bowl each time. Let's see. And okay, so in my example, I refer to a field that has the status, and on that it's rejected, on hold, or accepted, and it shows the different colored balls according to that. So what I want is a free text field, and what I'm using is an image BB code. So BB codes in Ragic, we have a few. They make you display an image, a video, sometimes a map, and it's really helpful if you're using free text fields a lot and don't really want to go in and create a different field. You can just add it to a paragraph if you want. So a BB code essentially displays a link or a link in a different way if you want. Okay, so I'm going to copy this entire thing and add it to the status visual field over here with, I'll actually modify this first because we know that our fields are different. Okay, so what we want is if the status, which is C3, so all the A4s are going to be C3. So I'll search for A4 and find all, I replace them with C3. If you're going to ask what I'm using for this program, it's called Sublime Text. It's really useful for programming usually, and it's really easy to edit references. Okay, so my status is completed, pending, or closed. So I want the completed to be green, and the on hold would be pending, and rejected would be closed instead. So all these point to my images hosted on ImageUR with the appropriate colors. So this one, red, is this link. So this is the image link. And this is why I said it needed to be hosted somewhere on the internet, so that I can actually refer to it with a BB code and display that URL as the image it is. So for anyone unfamiliar with the nested conditional formulas, basically what I'm doing here is setting a condition. So if our status is going to be closed, I want it to display this image. If not, and if my status is pending, it's going to display my yellow image. Or if not, but if not, and if my status is completed, it should show the green image. And if none of these conditions are fulfilled, it's going to say, please make a status selection. Okay. Sorry, a parenthesis here. Okay, so make sure that you close all open parentheses. And let me just select this entire thing. There you go. And paste it into my formula over here. So let's see if that works. So once I select a completed, it should show me the green. And pending should show me the yellow. And closed shows me the red. So if I don't have a status selection, it should say, please make a status selection. There we go. And there we go. So I can save this and actually go to my listing page to add that to the listing page. So when you go to the change design, click on the change design button on the listing page, it should actually show you. Sorry, let me refresh this. Oh no, I don't need to. Okay. It will actually show me the design mode of the listing page. And you can't really do much with the listing page design mode. We always make the form designs on the form page design mode, which you can go through through the arrow over here. But on the listing page, I can actually change the formatting of the field headers separately than the form page. The reason for this is maybe I want to shorten my titles on this view. Okay, so I'm going to add this RGB. Well, it's not RGB. It's red, yellow, green. ROIG. G. over here, oops, this was the status, sorry. I want to change this field's name to RYG and save it in the listing page so I can actually see this visually on the listing page if I wanted to. So let's see if this was pending and the other ones were completed, then this makes it easier to actually view. If this is really complicated, you can do something else as well. We also have another workaround for by using the BB codes again. So let me open my BB code reference because I'm not entirely sure that's how it's spelled. Let me quickly have a look. So for text formatting, we have color options as well. I think I should also copy this guide. Let me quickly do that on my other computer. So what I'm referencing to is here. Okay, so you can see that I can use different colors or even like hex codes. If you're unfamiliar with hex codes, it's 6 digits that show web colors. You can Google them. We don't really remember most of these codes, but basically it's red, green, and blue values. So if I have this code, it represents a certain red, and there are different shades. And if 6 of them are F, that means white. If all of them are 0, that means black. So it's a kind of color code that they came up with in the early days of programming. Alright, so if you want, you can use the BB codes and texts. That can even be in the status field. So if I change the design of this and go to the status field where I actually write the options, I can add BB codes to here, saying like color green for this one. And don't forget to close that. So I need to close this one, and this would be pending. I want it to be orange. And close, I would like it to be red. And it doesn't matter if you want to write the entire same thing. It doesn't matter if you mix the hexadecimal values with the ones that are are with text. And there we go. So bear in mind that this status is gonna show my older one because I selected it before I added the hex code. So you'll see that the completed has a green value now, but before I select that, it was a different value, so it still showed me the old completed option. So if I didn't have this field with the traffic lights, I could have used color codes on my status field, so ignore this one. So you can see that it visually looks a little bit different, and it's kind of easier to see for people. And you can actually search for these values as well. Alright, if anyone has any questions about this, you're very welcome to ask. I know it's a little bit advanced for some of the users, and might be a little bit complicated to get there while you're just setting up your sheets. Alright, so I have a few frequently asked questions that come through my our support system, and I will like to address those. But if you viewers have any questions, just type it in and I'll get back to you. Okay, so anonymous, how do map reports work? So map reports, what they look like is a basic little Google map on our reporting system. Sometimes people have a hard time displaying addresses accurately there. The reason for that is we actually are using the Google API, and they sometimes format the addresses in certain ways. So make sure that if you're in the US, it's really easy. You always have one format for the postal system, with street address and then unit number and then zip code, I guess, and city state. So that works well. If you know your city's formatting, just type it in as you do for a formal letter. If you're in a different country and are having a hard time displaying accurate addresses, maybe try typing with how you usually find addresses on Google Maps. And make sure you type the country as well, and the state definitely, because I actually live in Canada, and every city has a Princess Street and a Queensway or a Queen Street, and they get all jumbled up. Okay, so let's go to customers over here on our example. That wouldn't do. We only have one address. So let me add a couple customers here with their addresses. Okay, let's actually go to Google Maps and try finding addresses in New York, because this is a very kind of simple city to have a look at. So okay, so you can see that the address shows up. I'm going to copy paste this to the shipping address, and the customer name can be, I don't know, since it's Logan Street, it can be Logan, and save that. And then let's zoom out. Let's go find another address. And where's Manhattan? There it is. Let's go zoom in. A lot of businesses, huh? Not many residential areas. Okay, let's just create a. This is a travel agency apparently, and they can be our customer. Delgado Travel. Okay, let's find another address. Let's see how it maps it accordingly. So let's copy Foot Locker. And save. Okay, so the report is generated through here if you want, and address mapping is right here. And if I click on that, I want the label ID to be the customer name because it's easier for me. And there you go. It actually shows them accurately, whereas there is Logan and Brooklyn. Alright, so always make sure that you format the address in a way that Google Maps finds it. In the US, it's pretty easy. You have your street name and then city, zip, state, or however you format that. Let's see. Yeah, city, state, zip, and the USA. And if you have, like, I also have someone in Arizona, and I'm not sure if that's an accurate address because that was a test data, but let's zoom out. Yeah, Wile E. Coyote is in Arizona. There we go. So that should be pretty easy for people who have accurate addresses. If you don't have an accurate address and your data is all mixed up, then you probably need to format your data a little bit for using this mapping. John is asking, I would be interested in learning more about the What's New feature calendar report. Sure, John. Let's see which test data I had that works well with that. Let me quickly have a look. Nope. No, these are all expired. Well, okay, well, I guess we can create a new sheet for that on here. Or let's see, sales orders. Okay, for the calendar report to work, again, that's a report generated from your data as usual, and you actually need a start date and an end date, whether it's a task or a sales order. It can be like deadlines for the end date, and that date can also have a time if you want a more accurate calendar to show up. So I'm just gonna create a new sheet that shows me projects, I guess, because that's a great way to show a start and an end date. So let's say we have a project ID and project name, start date, due date, and actual end date. So this one works well with the weekly view and the monthly view if I have a start and due date, or if you want to show the gap between start date and end date, that is also fine. In the calendar report, we're going to have to select two dates so that we can actually show the gap between them. Okay, so the project ID can be PR something, and then yeah, that should be enough. So let's say we have a mug, well, what coffee mug project, and it starts today and will be, the due date can be the 27th, and we don't know the end date yet. Okay, so I usually recommend if you have like a start date, due date, and actual end date to show the due date, because the end date is entered later. Alright, and let's see, coaster project. I'm just typing the objects next to me, and it can start on the 17th and end on the 20th, and it maybe ended already on the 19th. Let's add a new one, say, let's see, blue pen project, and it can start next week and be due on the 3rd. Okay, so when I generate a calendar report from this form, it will show me all the related projects, and you can actually change the label. So if I wanted to show the project name, it's always better. So as you can see, the end date isn't really a good idea. It only shows me the start date, and if I wanted to select the due date, it should show the entire gap between the start and due date. You can actually save this as a report. So monthly view and week view works fine for these types of like projects if I have a few days to work on them. But they don't show the time necessarily. So if you wanted a project task to show the times, for example, let me go back to that. and create a task list underneath here. So I can format them with the end date and time and start date and time with the hour, with the date and hour format. And let's make this auto-generated so it's easier for us. All right. Call them T something. Okay. So for my coffee mug project, let's say that the start date and time was today at 8:30 a.m. and then the end date was the 25th. Well, my task for this one project, you can also add a name if you want. I'll actually do that in a bit. And on the same day, I want to end it at 3 p.m. Okay, so from a gap through 8:30 to 3 p.m. I'll see this one task. But for that to happen, I need to create a new sheet from this task. Task subtable, because reports are generated for sheets themselves, not subtables. So it needs to be a form. So I'll do that by creating a new sheet from subtable. You're already really familiar with this. Let's link back with the project ID. Okay, so this was a task and its name can be, I don't know, Blue Mug Design. The project was Blue Mug, right? Yeah, so coffee mug, Blue Mug Design. And then I can create another task for the same project. It can be Red Mug Design. And it can start at 11 a.m. today until 5 p.m. Okay, so if I wanted to show a daily view with the hours and such, the best would be this format for our calendar. Okay, so this is the monthly view and this will show up like this if I wanted to. End date and time and start date and time is what I'm selecting. So let's have a look at the day view, and you can see that I can actually see the gaps. So one thing with this daily view I'm not really a fan of is if I have like, not sure if they fixed this. No, they did already. Okay. Never mind me. But you can change the way the hourly gaps look. So if you want, you can split the time into half hour, like partition lines over here. Or if you need more gaps, then you can have more, things. And it can start at a certain time. So if our workday starts at 8, we don't need to see 6 a.m. And I can write even like 8:30. Okay. So there we go. That's the gist of it. I mean, I know it's not very advanced yet, but if you have any feedback on that, we really do welcome you to come in and send your feedback about this report type. All right, moving on to the next question. Okay, this is a very specific case, but someone was asking what happens when a user leaves the company and I want to transfer his rights to another user. If you're the system administrator, you can do that. If you're a programmer who actually created the database and are leaving it to a customer, you are probably one of our partners. But if you wanted to add someone to be the owner of your entries that already existed, you can do so as well. So we can go to the Start and Account Setup panel. If you're not a system administrator, you will never see this panel, but basically, when you go into a user record, you can have the option um, uh, to an action over here saying entry owner transfer. So if I click that, and if I have other users, basically you can select that other user and then transfer entry ownership. And then you can suspend that user so that they cannot access your Ragic database again. So suspended users, they might be leaving your company. You might need to give someone else access for a period of time, so that you don't have to pay for more licenses than you need to. For example, if I have a huge turnover over my interns and I have like 10 interns in my company, then I probably want to buy 11 licenses, which is like 10 for the interns, 1 for me. And then I want to, for example, suspend that one intern, and then when I hire another one and the other one leaves for college, then I can suspend the older intern and then add the other one as a user. So that's also a form of entry owner transfership. That's a form of transfership of your license that you have in Ragic. But if you wanted them to access another previous user's entries, because they can have different access rates, they can probably not see the previous user's entries and records and all the sheets they were assigned to, then you can transfer their entire entries to the new user. So that's what it's for. In most cases, I don't really recommend this unless they're a replacement for the person before them. Okay, so that's an option you can use. Usually it's best to just add a new user, suspend the old one, and if they're not needing to access the previous user's entry history, then it's best to just assign them into the entries that need them to and assign them in the correct user groups. So we did an entire user groups and access rights talk a couple weeks ago in our webinar on the 13th, and I think I covered most things over there, but I know some users came back today, and or if you have any questions about that, just let me know, because I know it's a little bit complicated and some people have certain cases that they want to address to. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know. And those are all the emailed questions. Do you viewers have any more questions for me? I don't think I built many demos today, but I hope I clarified some questions you had in mind. Anyone? No? Okay, well, I guess we did great. I mean, John reminded me of something. Yeah, okay, I was just gonna get to that. Because some of you users who have been with Ragic for a while might need a catch up with the new features. So the update values feature, I know it appeared on the What's New Today, but it's been implemented for a couple weeks now. We just had time to do a documentation about it recently, so it's just been announced basically, but it's been there. Okay, so what's a good example for that? Okay, customers is a good example. So no, actually, Okay, I'll just go over what it means. Update values is when you have certain actions on one form that you do all the time, um, and always have to format some of the records in the same exact way, then that's best. I don't know if you ever used Photoshop, but it's kind of like the actions over there. Um, what you can do with Photoshop is, for example, if I'm cropping something and I'm cropping like 100 photos in the same way, I just record it once and then it crops my other photos in the same exact way. Like I can even record like open file and then crop it in this certain way, change the contrast in this setting, and then save and close my document. So Photoshop can do that, and Ragic can do that now as well. So basically, I don't know what's the example we gave here. Uh, yeah, okay. This is actually, I hope this isn't a real person. Anyway, the example they gave on the screenshot is our ticketing system, and it shows, well, it shows that we don't need action with this one ticket. We usually use that for when it's an advertisement or if we already answered that question. When we answer that question, it already marks it as no need for further action unless they answer us. I guess that isn't a use case that you would be familiar with. But let's say that I need to, let's say that on our tasks, we have yes or no for complete and approved, also yes or no. And then next step, yes or no. So let's say that in our workflow, when a task is complete, we need to mark it complete. And then when it's approved, we have to mark it approved. And for the next step, we have to say yes or no. For example, if the task is the last one of this project, I don't need a next step. If I do, then it's yes. Okay. Let me just change the name over here. So, for the update values option, this only updates values on this one form. So if you want to update values on another sheet, it's different options. But update values is if I want to create an action button that just marks complete, approved, and next step required yes, I will just add these 3 steps and create this button. So I need to name this button and say like complete, approved, next step. You probably have like names for this, but I'm just gonna add a very long name so it would be clearer when we have a look at it. And I can add another one as well. So if I wanted to say complete, approved, but next step is not required, then I would just rate this complete, approved, no next step. Okay. So if I already completed, approved, and the next step is required, I just click the first button that actually saves the record. So I don't need to go in and edit this if it's a very like common thing that I need to do on every single record. Do you get what I mean? I mean, I really don't know how to explain this very well, but as it's very new for me as well, this feature. So if I wanted to go to that other red mug design and it's already done, then I can click here and set these records as they were set when I set the button. So this is very useful for very common setup. For example, if I'm a printer and I printed an A4 and I need to like need to have an action to send it to print and whatnot, then I can just modify a few fields in there in a very streamlined thing with a button instead of like going in and editing everything. And you'll notice that the action that I just did is on the history of the record so that you can actually see who clicked that button. Okay. John is saying perhaps update values pertains to linked data on another sheet. Not exactly. It doesn't matter if that data was linked or not because we set it with text. So I guess it doesn't really matter if it's linked or not. You can just set a few default things that you do in an easier way. Does that make sense? Okay, so John, what you're asking, like if sale price increases after the sale, I can't really do that with this action, I guess, because I don't think I can execute formulas with this action. I can do that with even if I did with the formula calculate. Let's try that. So let's see if my products. Okay, let's make a very easy example. Let's calculate the tax with unit price, which is C5 times dot 13, and then the discount can be manually entered, and the total price can be unit price C5 plus tax, which is A12, minus the discount, which is A11. Okay, let's save this. So if I said that that's not true. That's not correct. It should add these up. Let's see what I did wrong there. Oh, decimal points. Okay, so discount is 5 cents. No, not $5. 0.05. Okay, so let's say if I let's say if I wanted to delete this value and then the total price, I don't think it will calculate the price without the discount. Let's see. So discount is supposed to be 0. Discount end. So it just deletes my manual adjustment, right? See, it doesn't modify the total price because I didn't actually go in and edit the data when I was supposed to. Yeah. So it's not a good idea to modify numbers and the things that actually refer to your values that have formulas. It's usually best for text, I would say. I hope that makes sense. No, as I said, the action is for something that you edit all the time. So if it were a discount, I would just make a drop down. For example, discount yes or no, and then have that discount apply or not. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining. That's all the time we have today. And well, if you have any further questions, please write to support@ragic.com. I know we have a bunch of new features that don't have as good guides as the older features, and we're working on that. So if you see something pop up on the what's new menu over here and you have questions about that, I mean, we always link to the actual documentation, but if it's not enough, just let us know, because it's totally new for us as well. Even though we know how to use them, we might not know the nuances yet. Especially for me, I mean, I'm working remotely with the office and I might not necessarily know every single angle of a new feature unless I hound someone, which is hard for me. So if you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them as a team. And I hope to see you soon on our next webinar. I will be scheduling them for next month. So have a great day, everyone, and thank you for joining.